Hi everyone, welcome to the Issue Tracking Directly in Navisworks and Revit webinar. My name is John Barkwell. I am the Director of Business Development for the US for BIM Track. A little background on my experience. I've got 25 years experience in design and construction, primarily around architectural, engineering, construction related technologies. I'm also an Autodesk certified consulting professional. In fact, I spent 8 years at Autodesk during the Revit acquisition, working with a lot of the Autodesk strategic accounts, helping them move from a CAD workflow to a model-based workflow. Today, just to kind of review the agenda, what we're going to go over is really reviewing the process of creating and managing communication natively within Navisworks and Revit. We call this kind of in-context use, so that you can stay in the environment that you're comfortable with and can have access to all your correspondence management using the BIM Track plugin. I'll also go over how you can invite external project participants into the process by using our browser-based model access and reporting functionality. The last thing I'll show you is really how to measure the health of your project with real-time project metrics and analytics. Think sort of like Microsoft BI or Tableau metrics around your project performance. Really an incredible way to keep an eye on the health of your project. So let's jump into it. The challenges that we typically experience, right, is design is not necessarily constructability, right? There's issues that can be found earlier on before fabrication or materials are sent on site, right? So this is the classic example of trying to catch things earlier on so that nothing falls between the cracks. And really that's what BIM Track does, is really helps you manage that correspondence process so that nothing does fall through the cracks. So typically there's a variety of issues that can be raised in a typical model coordination process. They could be clashes, errors in admissions, maybe some requests or RFIs, even defects from a job site walk where you've noticed an issue and you want to notify project audience back at the office around a particular concern. Even into replacements and data validation, which kind of leads us into operations and maintenance, the true holy grail of BIM, by taking the information from design, constructability into operations and maintenance. And BIM Track plays a part of that process. So let's take a look at the typical model coordination workflow that we see today, which is pretty typical, where you've got your BIM manager, BIM coordinator, VDC coordinator, using tools like Navisworks to pull together multidisciplinary, federated models, do visual validation or possibly a clash detection report of areas of concern, and then either say viewpoints or send some type of transmittal off to the design and consultants around areas that they need to address and fix regarding the design. Inevitably, what happens is there's a lot of back and forth communication between the engineers and, say, architects around things that they're working on, traditionally through emails, maybe markups or PDF files. The challenge there is that, that correspondence that they're having via emails is not linked to the actual issue that we're discussing, and it's not synced to the actual model that we're working on. So there's really no direct connection between that correspondence and giving you a true single source of truth type audit trail of that correspondence. And then so they receive that information in, let's say, Revit, and they open up the central model file and make the changes, update the model, save to central, make their notes, and then the process is kind of weekly, rinse and repeat, right? That's the typical process. So what we're suggesting is there's really a better way of doing this. Instead of keeping things kind of siloed within, say, Navisworks or Revit, use the same workflow that you have today for your model management process. So if you're using BIM 360, BIM Track works perfectly well with BIM 360 for model management. or even a solution like Box or whatever your model management process is today, continue to do that. But think of BIM Track as sort of a layer that kind of complements that process to really help you manage and report your correspondence in issue coordination process. So the workflow today, an improved workflow, is that within, again, using the BIM manager or VDC coordinator with Navisworks, they can basically convert their viewpoints to issues or convert their clash detection reports to issues and let BIM Track manage that process. BIM Track will send an email notification to the recipient saying, you've received these items, they're due on this date. It's very clear what they need to work on. In fact, BIM Track will actually send a friendly reminder the day before that issue is due, saying, hey, you've got 20 items that are due before tomorrow's coordination meeting. You might want to get those done. So, instead of the BIM manager having to, herd cats and the team to get things done, BIM Track plays an assistant role in that. If we can basically get things moving along and focus on the next area for that next coordination, the next zone or next phase, projects run a lot smoother. And so what happens is the BIM manager uploads those issues to BIM Track with a notification. Recipients, design consultants, so using Revit, the architect, structural engineer, and Tekla, receive that in their inbox. They can click on those issues to directly navigate to where those issues are in the authoring environment or in the browser. Also, BIM Track invites other project participants like project managers, maybe the owner, into the project to really understand the progress and health of how the project is proceeding. So they don't necessarily have to have Revit or Navisworks to be part of the process. They can use BIM Track through the browser on any browser environment to really stay engaged in that process. What I'll be showing you when we jump into the live demonstration is Revit and Navisworks in kind of this short demonstration. And what you're looking at is the plugins that are freely available to any project participants to download so they can work in context within the environment that they're used to. So it's very easy for people really to accept using BIM Track because it complements their workflow today. It actually makes it a lot significantly easier because they're in the environment that they're used to using, literally every day, and they've got a dialog box running inside of that application that really facilitates the management of the issues that they need to work on. Okay, last slide before we jump into it, just to kind of set the stage. What we're talking about is obviously collaboration, but what we mean is, as opposed to information that can often get bottlenecked or siloed, really open it up into an open standard. I should mention, BIM Track is a cloud-based solution. We're part of the Building Smart Alliance around open interoperability and open BIM. So really, regardless, the analogy that I always use is regardless of the tool that you're using in the toolbox, BIM Track really allows you to play a part of that process. Accessibility is key as well, right? Being able to have access to information, regardless if you're in the office, on a job site, or at the coffee shop, right? That with your tablet, your phone, you have access, mobility to all of your information that is relevant to the project, including the model files. So. Transparency is the next thing that we really talk about. I think when I talk about transparency, it's visibility as well that phrases that, because BIM Track provides that health of the project. When you assign issues after a coordination meeting and you get together weekly, you really don't have a clear understanding of what's been accomplished with those issues that have been assigned to the team, right? Until you get together on the next coordination meeting and you go over the things that were addressed and the things that weren't, that's usually when you kind of find out. But BIM Track allows you to really measure the progress of that at any point in time. And it's interesting from a psychological perspective because people tend to be a little bit more proactive because there is a project-wide visibility into the health of the project. And at the end of the day, it comes down to accountability. If we can get people making the decisions and then updating the design based on their role and responsibility when they need to do it, projects run a lot smoother. And really, BIM Track plays a key component into that because of a cloud-based platform that provides that project-wide accessibility, transparency, and accountability on the project that really we've needed for a long time in the industry. And it really helps projects move along a lot smoother. So let me go ahead and pause here for a second, and I will jump over into the live demo and get set up over there. Okay, all right, I've got Navisworks running, and so as I mentioned earlier, however you load your models, whether you're loading them from a local server drive or using BIM 360, that's fine. I've installed the BIM Track plugin for Navisworks here, and I've docked the BIM Track dialog box over here on the right side of the screen, just a personal preference of how you want to do that. I've selected the project hub that I'm on, which is BIM Track, and I've selected the project specifically, which is this demo project, which retrieves all the issues related to that specific project. And here you can see that they're color-coded, in this case, based on priority. So the things that are red are critical, things that are green are medium. That's a project setting, completely configurable by you to see the information that you want to serve up. Maybe you want all the architectural to be red, or all the structural to be yellow, or by phase or zone, completely up to you. But it's just the way that you can kind of very easily visually understand, what needs to be worked on kind of based on priority. Some of these issues have been created. Typically, we see them created coming from Navisworks, but I'll show you, you can do that inside of Revit. You can do it from your phone. Here you can see this defect of this HVAC system that was maybe captured from a job site and tracked inside of BIM Track. So let me take you through a couple of the options of how you can create issues inside of Navisworks using the BIM Track plugin. You can create an issue basically by the view that you're in. So again, if you're doing a walkthrough within Navisworks for a visual validation, you see an issue, just use create issue. It'll do a snapshot of the current view that you're in, and then you can assign it with the properties or the metadata that you need to assign to it. Another popular way is views to issues, and let me show you how that works. So choosing views to issue brings up this create issues dialog box. And a common workflow that we hear a lot from our customers is that they're using save viewpoints within Navisworks to capture areas of concerns based on discipline and things like that. So what we allow you to do is basically convert, instead of keeping those viewpoints siloed within Navisworks, holding my shift key down, I can select as many as I want, click the add button, and basically what I'm doing is I'm just converting those viewpoints to actual issues over here on the right. And then I can assign those to project participants on the project. Issues need to be assigned to someone for accountability and resolution. You can also notify external parties. Think of this as like a CC in an email. John is assigning Alexine these issues, but it will also send a notification to the architectural alias team and to Christian as well, saying, hey, these issues have been created. She's working on them, but just a heads up. The options that you see here inside of the issue creation are completely configurable. So, if you've got a hospital project versus a warehouse project, you're going to have different zones, and it could be a high-rise project with different levels that you want. Completely up to you. Very easy to configure inside of the project settings in BIM Track. What is this? These are clashes, or in this case, maybe comments that were captured. The status is open. And then I can set a due date that I want Alexine to get these completed by and hit publish. And basically, it will convert those into BIM Track, send her the notification for resolution. The next option I want to show you is around clash detection. And this is probably one of the more popular processes that folks are doing to convert clashes to actual issues for management in BIM Track. So here you can see I've loaded this multidisciplinary model. I've got, a report that I've already run, walls against the structural, and it's identified 257 clashes. And what I can do is, these have been grouped together based on the structural. And so whatever grouping plugins that you might be using today for kind of your group management of clashes, you'll continue to do that, which is great. Basically, what we allow you to do is take those groups and convert them into an issue. The classic example is, the cable tray. You run a clash detection report, and that cable tray within that one room picks up like 20 clashes. Well, the fact is, those 20 clashes are really one clash, right? Because if we move that cable tray down, let's say an inch, it's going to resolve all those 20 clashes. So what we do is we group them together, and what I can say here is I'm going to convert, these two clashes, this clash 27 and 37, which have to do with this joist 450. And I want to kind of group those together. So I'll come over to the BIM Track dialog box and choose clashes to issues. What this will do is load the dialog box, and what I can do is select that clash report that I was working on, that test. You can automatically update statuses and new existing clashes. So if it gets resolved in Navisworks, it will sync that status inside of BIM Track. I can grab properties like things like date found, or distance of clash, and descriptions, and things like that, that Navisworks grabs and bring that information over into BIM Track. The status report, what I'm going to do is say grab the review, because I don't want to grab all these active ones. What it will do is basically grab the ones that I've toggled as reviewed. Okay, and I'm going to assign these to Alexine, again, like before. One thing I'll point out is, the BIM Track dialog boxes are what we call sticky. Meaning that they remember the settings that you have before. This is kind of as designed, because what it allows us to do, if you're ripping through these clash detections and you're assigning it to people and a lot of the properties stay the same, what's really nice is not having to choose these things every single time. It's all about efficiency, minimizing the clicks that you need to do when you're going through your coordination process. I can also grab the things like the view state. So any clipping planes or colorization that you do natively inside of Navisworks can be captured and brought over into BIM Track, so that you can pull that information up directly inside of Revit or inside the browser. And I'll show you kind of how that process works. So let's go ahead and do this example here where we publish that group that we've run inside of Navisworks into BIM Track. Okay, and so everything's been kind of updated. BIM Track will automatically sync, telling us it's received that information. Alexine's going to get an email in her corporate inbox, and up here at the top you can see now that we've captured, it grabs that screenshot, so it's 1 of 3, 2 of 3, and 3 of 3 of those views, right? And so it's got an overall view. You also, a little tip here, if you right mouse button click on this, you can update views, maybe with a current state. So a lot of times if Navisworks doesn't give you the best view or angle that you want to kind of communicate that design concern or a clash issue, you can always update that and override that directly inside of BIM Track. Okay, so that's kind of the process in a nutshell of how you can convert issues and viewpoints from Navisworks into BIM Track. Let's jump over into Revit, and I'll kind of play the role as the architect in this example. So again, what I've done is I've loaded the model, and I've got some linked models with this. If you're using C4R, that's fine. I've loaded the BIM Track dialog box, the plugin and the dialog box over here on the right side of the screen, just like I did with Navisworks. And I'm going to hit the refresh button since I already had the model loaded and I had BIM Track loaded to go ahead and pull any issues. And here you can see we've automatically pulled the issues in that were created inside of Navisworks, immediately available to the designer to fix that resolution immediately. So what you can do is there's options here, view and model. So now that I've got the models loaded, we're using the shared coordinate system to kind of communicate those viewpoints within models. And what's nice about that is regardless of the the tool that you're using, it will respect that coordinate system, that viewpoint, and allow you to take you directly to that location. So if I click View and Model, it takes me to that location, and you can see we also convert the clash areas with spheres into Revit, just as a visual aid for you to help visualize where that clash is at. And then using the selection box tool inside of Revit, if I go ahead and click on that after doing that conversion, you can see what it does is it clips around, because a lot of times when you get clashes, there may be some elements that are in front of you that you really can't see where that clash is at. So simply using the selection tool, when I had the spheres were automatically selected when I clicked on View and Model, allows me to very quickly kind of pinpoint where that clash or concern is at, okay? So the idea is that I would make the change to address the design concern inside of Revit as the architect, and then what I'll do is I'll come over and click on View and Edit inside of that clash. And you can see here, it's captured, the title, Joyce 450 from Navisworks, clash test. It was a hard clash, date found, distance. So it captured all of those properties and imported them into the dialog box here. And so now playing the architect, in this case, Alexine, I would go in and make the changes to the design. And then what you can also do is you can capture a snapshot. A really good workflow that a lot of our customers will do is, the BIM manager will say to the designers, when you make the change, do me a favor and grab a snapshot of the change that you've made, in Revit, with your comments. I made a fix today, and hit post. And now that's automatically updated and published to BIM Track with kind of proof, if you will, that I've made the change. And then from here, inside of the status, what I'll do is I'll change it to resolved. There's actually a closed status that is available on the project, but an interesting workflow that a lot of our customers will do is the BIM manager is the only one who has the authority to do closed on issues. The designers and consultants will log them as resolved and then publish their notes to BIM Track. The idea is it's a level of quality control on it, so that the BIM manager can basically run a daily or weekly report to say, hey, show me all the issues that were resolved today or this week, and I'll go through and do that quality control review process to make sure that it was fixed correctly. Because if not, I can flick it back to open with some notes saying, hey guys, you didn't make the change, I need you to do this. And all of that correspondence and communication and the discussion is kind of tracked along with that issue. And I'll show you how you can kind of view that. It's not only just, a 2D world, or a 3D world, because you are working in 2D a lot as well. So what we allow you to do, you can see those clashes from the 2D view as well. You can actually create, issues from a 2D view. So let me show you how that would work inside of Revit. I'll just go ahead and click on Create Issue. What it will do is it will grab a snapshot of that view that I was in, and then I can use the markup tool built into my windows. In this case, I've got Paint running. If you had Bluebeam or any markup tools that you had available on your computer, completely up to you to use those. But what I'm going to do is basically create an issue with this, saying there's an issue with this wall that needs to be fixed here. So using just basic annotation markup tools with Paint, I'll go ahead and save that. You can see now it's captured that area of concern, and this is something related to the wall. I'll type in wall issue and some instructions, please fix the wall location. Okay, so you get the idea. And again, assigning this to Alexine, I'm going to ask her to get it done by tomorrow with any view states. Go ahead and hit publish, and that will get uploaded to BIM Track, send her a notification, and now you can see over here on the right, it's tracking all of that correspondence and communication in context within Revit Navisworks. Okay, let's jump over to the browser and let me show you kind of another view of how you can view this information and also allow as I mentioned, extended project participants into the process. So I'll go ahead and click on issues. It's kind of timed out since my last login, so let me log back in to the project that I'm working on. We use a hub concept, so you can have multiple projects working on a hub. I'll talk more about kind of the licensing kind of at the end of that. But now you can see here's the the issues that we created inside of Navisworks, this joist 450, that wall issue that we created inside of Revit is all available here. Okay, let me pick one that has a little bit more communication going on it. So let me scroll down and see what we have. There's one in here like this structure versus HVAC is a good example. If I click on that, you can see there's been some communication. This is probably not the best one, but let me go back and use the filters to kind of filter out something specific, what we're looking for. Because the issues are classified, right, with metadata, is it a critical issue? Is it a high issue? What phase it might be involved with? What zone is it related to? What type of labels? Is it something related to the mechanical? And hit apply. And now it will basically search, instead of the 215 issues, down to the 17 issues that are critical and high related to the mechanical, right? And so that's part of the reason why you do the classification, the metadata for your issues, is that you can search those. And you can save these search sets so that you can pull them up and share these with your colleagues. So let's click on this HVAC and BIM. This is one that has, I know, a lot of correspondence on it. So you can see it's got multiple views. If I hover over it, it's telling me it's coming from that thumbnail. It's coming from Navisworks. You see all the metadata that's been defined. This is a comment, critical. And here you can see Christian and I have been having some communication around that issue. So instead of using email within Revit or inside of the browser, you can add all of your comments and their time and date stamps. You even get a complete historical audit trail of everything that everyone has done related to that issue, right? And so it's time and date stamped on everything that's happened specifically related to the issue that you're working on. So single source of truth, no delete audit trail of what's been going on with that issue. You can even attach things, like if there's any external documents, PDF, spec files, video files that you want to relate to that issue, you can browse through a server drive and attach those issues. So that's a general overview of a different view of how you can see those issues directly inside of the browser, and as well as inside of the authoring tool that you're using. Let's jump over to the viewer, and let me point out a couple things, because we don't require you to upload the models. As I mentioned before, you use your typical model management process that you do today, but you can publish the models via the Industry Foundation class, IFCs, really to kind of share those models. And you can see here, let's say the architects in Chicago and the MEP is in Los Angeles and the structural engineers in Denver, different remote teams, they can basically publish their models to the project regardless of where they're at key milestones to share that design intent on where we're at on the project, so that people are kind of aware of what's going on. And you can even pull up save views. So much like you would do in Navisworks or Revit, let me go ahead and pull up, say, this architectural HVAC and structural model view. So think this is basically a very similar workflow that you might do in Navisworks, where you pull together a view, a multidisciplinary model view with multiple models from different sources and different authoring tools, with kind of a save view and display sets. So very similar to kind of Navisworks. You can do a walkthrough, you can pan and zoom through the model, you can change the camera from perspective to orthogonal. You've got some measurement tools which are great to really query the model, interrogate the model, check that mechanical room to make sure you've got the right clearance in it. You've got clipping plane options that you can really slice the model up to kind of explore that model. So a variety of things that you can do to kind of navigate. And the model, the viewer handles extremely large models. It's very fast to navigate through large model sets. But on top of that, what we do is we allow you to kind of overlay those issues related to the actual models that you're working on. So here's, the joist that we created inside of Navisworks. Here's that wall issue that we created inside of Revit. You can even grab filters, which is really nice. So as I mentioned before, how we showed the critical and high mechanical, I can say, show me all the top MEP issues, which is a saved search set with critical and high mechanical, and then hit apply. And basically now it filters down to those 17 issues out of the total of 1,500 that we had overall on that project. And what I can do is I can turn on the clash pinpoints. So here I can show those actual clash locations, sphere locations inside of the browser, as well as I can show the camera locations that have been created inside of Navisworks or Revit here inside of the browser. So as I orbit around this building, and I hover over in these camera points, you can see the unique ID of those issues, as well as the name of that issue. And if I click on that camera, which is nice, it navigates me now directly inside of the model using the browser of where that issue was at, created from inside of Navisworks. Okay, so again, allowing the project manager who doesn't have Revit on his system or doesn't have Navisworks or frankly couldn't open and navigate it to save their life, to use a very simple interface to kind of navigate through to find those issues. Okay. The last thing I want to show you here is around the metrics. I mean, this is probably, one of the most powerful things is really understanding the health and progress of your project using the analytics. Average close time on issue is 41 days. This is a demo project, so it's not very accurate. If I was the BIM manager, I'd be in big trouble here with 41 days overdue. But it's real information that's automatically being reported and tracked inside of BIM Track. You can see over here on the right all the project participants on the project color-coded. And here in this kind of pie chart, if you hover over it, it's dynamic. I could click in and drill in to see what Christian is working on, or see what other project participants are involved with here. You can see it's kind of color-coded like that. You can even filter this information, maybe by teams, right? So how many issues is the MEP engineer working on versus the architect or structural engineer? Maybe on status, right? What's going on with the status of the project? How many are active versus open or reviewed, or based on label or let's say phase of the project? It looks like most of our activity is happening in the design phase here. Some are in construction. Maybe priority, right? So how many do we have that are high versus kind of critical? Obviously, we want to resolve those critical items. So let's drill into critical to see what's kind of going on. So I'll click on that. And you can see here the project participants that have the items assigned to them that are critical. And Eric's got, the biggest piece of the pie here. So, what I could do is I could use this to kind of measure ahead of time before my coordination meeting, to address a concern or a potential bottleneck. Maybe Eric's been on PTO or he's been out sick this week. What I can do is I can do a multi-edit of maybe say half of his issues and then say assign those over to Alan, who looks like he's got some bandwidth this week to handle resolution of some more of those issues. So that's kind of the idea of just when we talk about transparency and visibility is literally at a click of a button, real-time metrics on how the progress of the project is proceeding. We can look at a total versus closed issues on a weekly or let's say a monthly report. So this is kind of interesting analytics to look at, over the life of the project from when it started, how many issues have been created and how many have been resolved to the current date, right? And so if you've got a project milestone coming up, you want to make sure that these lines are as tight as possible. It just gives you a different perspective or different lens to really measure the health of your project. So let's take a look at printing a report of this. So you can actually grab reports, and you can actually even save templates of reports after your coordination meetings, maybe reports based on certain disciplines that you're working with. So let's go ahead and print this. And this was a report basically on the critical issues that I was working on today with my design team. Okay, it's going to try and fire up my printer here. I could save this as a PDF file that I could upload to Procore or to Aconex to really memorialize this project record. It time and date stamps it. You know, on this time and date, this is where we were at on the project, considering the number of issues that were involved. And you get a pie charts of all of those issues. And again, this dialog boxes and these options are completely configurable for your project settings. And if I scroll down here a little quickly, you can see all of the comments, snapshots, everything that everybody has been working on in remote locations and different tools, all centralized inside of BIM Track, inside of this report. So you've got a complete, audit log here in a report with literally a click of a button of where we were at on the project. Okay, so that gives you kind of an idea of the value of BIM Track. This was a super high-level overview. We covered how to create issues inside of Navisworks, how to receive those issues inside of Revit, and even create issues there. I showed you the model browser, how you can navigate through models and overlay issues on top of those models natively inside of the browser. And the last thing we just reviewed was kind of the reporting functionality, how you can measure the health of your project. So hopefully this gave you, a good basic understanding of BIM Track. My goal here was that it gave you that, but also gave you some interest into knowing a little bit more about BIM Track, because we just literally scratched the surface. There's so much more that we could show you, and we'd like to extend an invitation, if you are interested in taking a deeper dive, to reach out to us and schedule a one-on-one presentation, and we'll go through a more technical deep dive on BIM Track and answer any questions that you have. Okay, I appreciate your time today. Thank you for joining the webinar, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Take care.